Right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the exhibition, and we're going to talk about concrete pumping today. This is a very interesting field, and has been around for the last 50 years, believe it or not, in South Africa. And I'm very fortunate to be part of the original team, the original founders of concrete pumping in South Africa, mainly Mr. Garbini Senior, and Mr. Gustavo Garbini, which go back many years, who introduced commercial concrete pumping in South Africa. So let's start off by just having a bit of history, looking at how concrete pumping came about, and then we're going to look at its applications, we're going to look at challenges in the industry, and then we're going to look at equipment and see how equipment has changed over the years and what's going to happen probably in the future. We also have some tips at the end to do with concrete pumping itself. And at the end of the program, I'll take some questions and be able to answer some of your questions. Right, moving on to slide number 1. There is the introduction, concrete pumping in South Africa. And so this is how it came about. Like we said in the very beginning, back in 1969, there was no concrete pumping in South Africa. There was some prehistoric ways of putting concrete down with conveyor belts, blasting concrete down pipelines, but there was no real commercial concrete pumping or no performance concrete pumping of special concrete. And this is how it started, way back in 1969. Mr. Garbini and Mr. Grandin were busy with this construction river bridge outside Port Elizabeth, a very famous bridge, used to be used in the PPC advert many years ago. And this is where it all started because the concrete pump was on the bridge while they were building, and Mr. Garbini Senior, my late father, picked up the idea and decided to form a company in 1969 called ITIL Service in Johannesburg, and commercial concrete pumping was born. There we go. So 1969, very first pump in Johannesburg, and very, very archaic, antiquated, primitive ways of placing concrete those days. Machines were very, very just starting out. And even though in Europe they've been pumping concrete for about 20 years already, or 30 years, but the machines are still very undeveloped there. So the result is that there's a lot of pioneering work for the poor guys. These two engineers, Mr. Garbini Senior and Mr. Grandin, two brother-in-laws, set out because Mr. Grandin then left the St. Simons River Bridge to join ITIL Service in 1969, 1970, and they started this whole concrete pumping operation in Johannesburg. As you can see, the very first pump, very small, 15 cubic meters per hour, which, I mean, it's really small. You don't get machines like that anymore, but that is how they started out. And then the very first boom pump came along in 1970. 17-meter placing boom. For those of you who don't know about concrete pumping, the placing boom is the one that places the concrete, and we'll get to it later in the program. And 32 meters per hour delivery. Having said that, you can see on the slide that in 1970, at the LTA, the old LTA Killarney portal, these two gentlemen, together with a third pump operator, did a pour of 1,800 cubic meters non-stop for 34 hours using 3 mobile concrete pumps, to the boom of very early designs. Now, just stop for a minute and think about that. Imagine these pioneering guys, these pioneering engineers, who, were operating machinery to place concrete on those two bridges that you see down there in the picture, Killarney. And they worked non-stop 34 hours to place 1,800 cubic meters. It sounds like a lot, is a lot, was a lot then, and it's still a lot today. We've seen pours today, modern pours today of 2,500 cubic meters in basically 24 hours. So I think one should really tip your hat to these gentlemen, these pioneers, who brought along this technology to South Africa and who've created a whole industry since that first day. Very interesting. Right, moving on. Already back in 1992, we were pumping concrete in high-rise buildings such as this, Absa Tower in Johannesburg, you can see that the boom pump reached 32 meters at the bottom, after which obviously you could not pump anymore. You had to then run a line pump or trailer pump, which gets to 102 meters, or those days go to 102 meters, and we place the concrete up there. Another interesting fact, so long ago, and these specialist guys at the specialist company called Etal Service at the time, which was eventually became part of Pioneer Concrete, which eventually became part of Alpha Stone and Ready Mix, eventually became part of Wholesome, eventually became part of Africa, the pumping division. So moving on from that operation, something I personally was involved in back in 2002 was this Mandela Bridge in Braamfontein. Very interesting, another very interesting project where I was called. I've done quite a bit of work in America already on special concrete pumping applications, and this bridge that you see here was quite tricky because we had to pump the pylons vertically, and there's a railway station, that's Joburg railway station at the bottom, and you can see that putting pumps under here was a no-no. We couldn't put a pump on top because the weight of the machine, which was 30 tons, and we couldn't put a pump underneath. We could divert the trains to a point, but then we had to try and get to the top here, right on top, and put concrete from the top, which was also quite tricky. So I met with engineers at the time, and we said, look, let's try something that I did in America, where we pumped from the bottom. And what we did is we brought the pipeline, we put the boom pump away from the site on this side, and we ran a pipeline on the deck here, and we put a special valve at the bottom of these pylons, and we pumped it vertically. This was new to South Africa back in 2002. So we put a special valve, and we poured the first one, very special lightweight or flowcrete concrete, very, very, very flowable concrete design, and we pumped from the bottom up. When it got to the top, we closed the valve, waited 3 days, and then they moved the valve to this pylon, and then they pumped this one. And so off we went, and we did the next one. A few days later, and the next one, and within a week or two, it was all done there, which was very interesting at the time. So you can see that technologies have changed. I mean, there's very much improved technology nowadays from concrete, and concrete has changed a lot as well. It's a whole discussion on its own. The concrete for pumping is a very special discussion. So moving on, today we have machines like this, which are 45 meters of boom length. The boom can reach 45 meters, but partly made out of carbon fiber. And I introduced this to the market in 2013. Very special piece of equipment designed to operate on the roads with light weights within the legal limits of the transport regulations. And it brings extra length to the boom, where we can get 45 meters versus 42 meters in steel designs, and brings a great technology to the market. This was released in 2013, and there's been more development since. It's now gone to 47 meters, and we have big boom pumps which reach even 80 or 100 meters in some parts of the world. I don't think we have this market for that at this stage, but who knows? Maybe in the future. So the industry of concrete pumping has a whole lot of challenges and opportunities which exist, and we can talk about that now, where things have changed tremendously in the last five years or so, and we can see here. And what's happened is basically that the economy is contracted. We had a great economy right up until 2010 World Cup. Then a little bit more to like 2015, right? And then it's been a bit quiet, and it's been rather restricted the last few years. And the large companies are gone. The big companies we all know, the big construction companies, most of them are folded. There's a few left, but the big guys have closed. So this has had an effect on the smaller players and suppliers. Why? Because it means that they've got to gear up, and they've got to try and keep up with this type of projects. Also, new projects are limited. We know that the government needs to do a lot of infrastructure development in this country. You can see there that a few years ago there was 100 billion to be spent over the next decade. And then there's a 526 billion to be brought into the private sector development finance as well. And this is growing. We find there's a lot more to be done here. And we hope that government and private sector can get this going. I'm quite optimistic about next year, and I think next year is going to be very interesting for South Africa because we've been through lots of ups and downs and lots of rocky rides for the past couple of years, but I think next year is going to be very important here. So we can ask a few questions a bit later about how's this going to impact us and what opportunities do we face. And I'd like to hear from people that are in the group. There's some specialists out there who are more into the construction and into the development in the industry, and they could answer some of those questions. Here are some of the ones that we know: market, economy, negative growth, operator skills, equipment maintenance, cost of equipment and pumping, quality and supply of pumpable concrete. Each one has its own problems. We can go into each one there in discussions and look at them. But that needs a bit of a separate workshop. We can go into each one by one. We can fringe on them now, we can touch on them now, but it really needs quite a bit of discussion there. Opportunities, well, emerging market, we know that. It's a great emerging market. Creation of a regulatory environment. I'm involved in that. I've been involved in this since 2007. We're just fringing on it at the moment, but it's to do with the SACPA, which is the Concrete Pumping Association. I was involved in this in America when I worked there in the year 2000, and very interesting regulatory body, very professional body overseas. So that means training and it means professional support. So we have their constraints and opportunities, and once again, they can be discussed at your private chat if people want to send questions or they'd like to chat later, or send me an email and we can have a discussion on all these different constraints and opportunities. So what are the solutions and the way forward? As we said, making pumping a professional industry. Now, this is very important because I've worked in a few parts of the world and I've seen concrete pumping in many different parts of the world. And the equipment is so expensive and it's such a capital investment on equipment, and the industry is always demanding more out of concrete pumping people. So the staff, the operators and the equipment are constantly under pressure to perform and to be able to give the maximum delivery and most efficient costs for clients, which puts pressure on everybody, obviously, to perform. And this is where we need to make this a professional industry. There's too many operations running around with amateurs or old equipment or chances in the industry, and that hurts the industry. It hurts everybody. It hurts the client because he gets the poor service. It hurts the ready-mix companies which are supplying the concrete because they get bad reputations. It hurts the owners of the equipment, and it hurts people like ourselves who sell the equipment because it's not coming across as professional enough. So here's a bit of an outline on what to do. The value creation, pumping standards, equipment delivery standards, concrete quality skills, development, and operator standards. These are all areas that we can work on and which I intend to push forward. Membership costs, obviously people have to be members or owners have to be members, and we can work on a fee for that. Please contact me for interest in this because we need to pick this up again and take it forward. There we are as well. So, if we develop a skills base, we have operator skills development. That'll help a lot, because I train a lot of operators. That's what I do a lot of nowadays. I train operators. I lift the skills of operators of concrete pumps, both the servicing of the equipment, the operation of the equipment, and the operator himself, and the team that work on site. So I've done a lot of work in this, and I continue to do this work to be able to increase the skills and the standards so that we have good concrete pumping on the way and no problems on site. There's a bit of a qualification there, as you can see, the plan for the qualification, and this will all be part of the Concrete Pumping Association. So we now have the different types of equipment, and you can see how things have changed now. On our side, on the Chifa side, we have these three ranges of equipment. Chifa is a very big company. They've been around for 90 years, and they have made a beautiful, very efficient and economic range of concrete pumps. From a classic series, which is the economical line, the steel thick series, which is their normal line, and then a very fancy carbon fiber series for high quality markets and high quality operators. And we can see that there's a whole range from 38 meters and 41 meters on the economy line to a 20 meter right through to a 58 meter on the steel thick line. And that is where most of the work happens, is in the steel thick side. And for countries that need economical machines, we use the classic. And then for a lot of European countries and high quality countries where standards are very high, we have the carbon fiber series, which goes from a 39 to a 45 to a 62 to an 80 meter, and that is being developed every year as we go along. Yes, so nice range of products, and we're always very keen to demonstrate. We have some 80 concrete pumps running around South Africa, and we can easily demonstrate any of these pieces of equipment from the classic range to the steel thick through to the carbon fiber series that we have running in the country. And once again, any people that are asking questions or would like to see something, they must contact me, and I can arrange a demonstration. Moving on. Right, so here once again we have the boom pumps on the left-hand side of the panel, and once again the classic series at the bottom, steel thick and carbon thick. And then we have the trailer pumps. So not everybody does concrete pumping with boom pumps. Trailer pumps have been around for a long time, and it's also a very economical way of doing it, bearing in mind that you have to lay pipelines and you have to use it differently to the boom pump. The boom pump's quick because it gets there, opens the boom, puts the concrete down, and closes up and goes away. The trailer pump is more suitable to leaving it on site and doing the job for, let's say, a week or 2 or 3 days concrete pumping, or maybe a month or 2, or even a year or 2, if not more. So the trailer pumps are a different application, and we do have clients who have trailer pumps and tow them behind the trucks. And you can pump concrete that way. You tow the trailer pump, you have your pipeline, you have your water, and your clamps and your pipes and everything, and you go to site. Depending on your budget and your applications, there's all these different applications here. So once again, just message me if you'd like to know some more information on this, and I can certainly assist you here. Okay, so for those who are into the latest technology and people who would like to have a look at carbon fiber booms, you can see there that we have a 25% weight reduction for the same length of boom. You see, but we also get a 20% increase in length. So that's quite a number. I mean, we have these big advantages here, and we find that sites nowadays are getting more and more demanding. They want bigger and bigger booms. We're getting requests now for pumps in the 52, the 55 meter region, and that will be the future. The future is going to be bigger pumps, And the interesting part is that we need obviously lots of concrete work for these big pumps because the pumps are expensive, and we need to be able to ensure that an expensive piece of equipment like that is going to do the job efficiently and cost effectively. So I can see that in the next few years we're going to be running these big pumps, especially with these big projects that are coming up. I mean, there's some very interesting building projects here in Gauteng, housing projects, not necessarily for big booms, but at the same time there's going to be high-rise again, big high-rise buildings. I understand there's going to be probably more power stations and more bigger projects. And just for interest's sake, all the big power stations we did over the years, such as Kusile, Medupi, there the owners, the operators of the machines preferred the 42-meter pump, which we used to supply. And there was a demand, constant demand for the bigger pump. So that is the way forward. Moving on. Okay, so we can now talk about equipment. Those of you who are in the actual presentation, we can have a look and we can see that equipment maintenance is very, very important. So those of you who have concrete pumps that are here today will obviously be asking this question because a concrete pump can be an expensive piece of equipment to run because it needs to be run properly. It must be operated properly. As you can see on the bullet points there, the operator skills are crucial. The owner knowledge. The owner must know about the concrete pump. We've experienced over the last 30, 40 years, I've been doing this for 40 years now, and my experience has been that too many owners allow the operators to dictate. In other words, they run the machine, they run the pump, they know what's best, while the owner is busy getting contracts and doing the wheeling and dealing with clients, with the concrete guys, but he's not really that clued up with the pump. And he leaves it all in the hands of the operator. And the operator can be very good, it can be very poor. And we've noticed that we need to train both the operator and upskill him, and also upskill the knowledge of the owner, get the owner more involved, because things change tremendously when the owner knows more about the pump. Dedicated maintenance schedules. Now that's very important. Because we've done this for so long and we've maintained so many pumps. And at one stage, we had a fleet of 15 boom pumps, 2 trailer pumps back in the day with eco service, and it was actually a beautiful thing to watch. Where we had real professional mechanics, professional management, professional company, and wow, 30,000 cubic meters a month were placed with concrete. No problem, back in the 1990s. And even in 1980s, so that was a real nice operation. Beautiful time, beautiful equipment, beautiful teamwork. And I'd like to see that return. There are companies doing it. I see some very interesting companies. I won't mention any names now, but they know who they are. There's a handful of very professional operations, big companies, medium companies, and even small operators. I have some very, very proud of some of my clients who have anywhere between 2 and 6 or 8 concrete pumps of their own, the smaller guys, but who have a real professional outfit. I mean, super efficient mechanics. Machines are super clean, well maintained, and really does the industry proud. And as we go along and form the Pumping Association, we can reveal the names. So we can go there, we can see professional maintenance team, we just spoke about that, and preventative maintenance. That is really what it's all about, guys. I see too much breakdown maintenance. I'm still seeing that, even in these modern days. And it's actually getting worse because the concrete pump is quite a beast there. Your average concrete pump day, week, month, year consists of the operator getting up at 4, getting to the workshop at 5, starting the pump at 5, driving to site, or leaving at 5, 6 in the morning, getting to site at 7. The concrete arrives at 7, 7:30. He's there all day, and then he leaves the site often at either 6, 7, 9, 10, even 11 o'clock. And this might be an ongoing thing. Or the pump could be even working on site and it works at 2, 3 in the morning. Power stations, quite common. So where do you do the preventative maintenance is the question. Where do we fit in preventative maintenance on a concrete pump? And the answer is that very few people do preventative maintenance because there's no time. The concrete pump works has a duty cycle of 6 days a week, often, which means that maintenance is not done, or you have to do it on a Sunday. And Sunday is rest day. I mean, the teams can't work on a Sunday if they're working 6 days a week. If they work 5 days a week, it means it's going to be done on Saturday. And very few people actually do that. So your preventative maintenance falls behind, and then you start getting what we call breakdown maintenance, which is another problem on its own. So there's opportunity there as well. And you'll see that this will all improve, once the industry gets busier and there's more concrete pumps, more professionalism, the standards increase, very important, the standards. And as people get trained better and the owners of concrete pump understand or realize that the cost of running a concrete pump can really be controlled. We've succeeded quite well with quite a few clients on this, and we will be doing a lot more work on this in the future. Those of you that are on the group at the moment, or in the meeting, we can see that there's lots of factors to pump concrete correctly. These are just a few. Equipment size. Make sure you've got the right boom for the job. I mean, you can't send a small boom. You can't send a 24-meter boom to go and do a 42 meters job. It's done. It's done because often the 42 meters are busy, the 36 meters are busy, and they'll send a 24 meter and add pipes along the way, which is not allowed. You're not supposed to do that. And then we go to trailer pumps. So trailer pumps are quite complicated in cost because you need to set up the trailer pump. You've got pipelines there, you've got a hell of a team of people there. Often you've got 6 or even more people laying pipelines to do the operation of the trailer pump. And it's quite a team involved. Compared to a boom pump, you might have 6 or 8 people per trailer pump compared to 2, let's say, or 3 with a boom pump. And then look at the next line, working hours for operators and cost of overtime. 10 hours overtime per week, no problem. Okay, it's quite often, it's quite religious, and the staff, as I said, work till 10, 11 at night. Site establishment costs. It obviously costs to get the concrete pump to site. You have to drive it there, you've got the truck to consider, you've got the diesel, you've got the wear and tear on the actual truck, and there's usually a fee for that. So if you take a concrete pump to site, you obviously have a fee to charge your client, and that must be worked out quite carefully. Then you have a rate per cubic meter pumps, and that obviously is taking into effect the wear and tear of the pump, the cost of the pump, the financing costs, and very importantly, the wearing costs per cubic meter that you pump. Few people think about that, especially when the machine is new. They tend to think, oh, what a dream. This machine doesn't cost much to run, until the 3rd year usually, and then it starts getting costly. Traveling costs, up and down. Some people pump far away. It's always been a thing. You might get an application somewhere where they're doing a wind farm or somewhere in the middle of the Free State or the Karoo. Very costly to get there. Very, very costly to drive a pump there. But if the client is going to pay, they don't have their own equipment or they have a breakdown with the equipment, they have to travel and the client has to pay. Size and complexity of pour. That's also very, very interesting because too many people don't go and look at site nowadays. They don't do what we call a site inspection. They speak to the client and they think, okay, well, there's I don't know, 400 or 300 cubic meters to pump today. And they look at the drawing or they look online and they say, well, it's simple, it's a first floor, or maybe it's just a slab, or maybe it's just a ring beam or something a bit more complicated. And they've done millions of these before, or they've lots of before, and they fall into the trap of not looking at the pour anymore. Why? Because the correct procedure is to go to site, have a look at the actual pour a few days before you do it. You know what you're getting yourself into. And of course, the professionals are out there and they know who they are. They've actually made their bones over the years. So what they do is they turn away the difficult pours. They take all the nice ones nowadays. But take the nice ones, they leave all the difficult ones for the amateurs at the beginning, the guys who've got the new pumps. And that's how we learn, unfortunately. It's called paying school fees. It happens everywhere in every industry. The new guys, new kids on the block, they've got to learn. So they take all the difficult ones at the beginning, which is good. That's how you learn, and that's how you learn about the industry. Profitability, well, that's key. I mean, you only want to own a concrete pump because you want to offer a service. You need to make a profit. You need to be able to afford to run your pump. You need to be able to pay it back. You need to pay your mechanics, your rental, your spare parts, your diesel, and at the end of the day, you need to pay people's salaries as well. So like all business, it has to be profitable. You don't want to do it just because you've got a concrete pump or because you don't know what else to do. So all these factors here, once again, fall into the Concrete Pumping Association. And that is where it's a bit of a point we need to talk about going forward, is the profitability. There's certain guidelines on what rates to charge and what we should be charging and what we should be charging for site establishment, what we should be charging for rates per cubic meter per hour, static lines, boom pumps, etc., etc. And that we can discuss on a separate group or separate session. Okay, and there we are. I'm available for this. That's what I do. I do professional assistance to do costing of concrete pumping. And hopefully we can get a body together, this Concrete Pumping Association, to be able to all agree on what to charge the industry, what people should be charging, so that it makes sense to actually pump concrete. Okay, so here's the next challenge we have, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I can't see you there, but I assume there's ladies and gentlemen in the group. And this is a big challenge. This is going to continuously be a challenge. This is one that doesn't go away, unfortunately. Concrete is becoming more and more challenging to pump. Why? Because as the world changes, as the environment changes, as the projects change, as the concrete itself changes, and it's got a lot to do with the environment and a lot to do with what clients want. And cost, obviously, is always a factor. So client might say, I only have this budget to pump concrete, and this is what I'm going to pay. And then the ready-mix company will say, well, I can give you concrete for that. And the pumping guy comes along and he says, but hang on, my concrete pump doesn't want to pump this concrete. And the ready-mix guy says, but why? You should be able to, you must pump this concrete. And the customer says, I want that concrete to be pumped. So over the years, concrete pumps have constantly evolved, they've constantly changed to be able to handle more abrasive and more difficult concretes. Obviously, to be able to serve the industry. And you can look at the bullet points there. As I was saying, it's becoming more abrasive. Why? Because the aggregates are changing, different type of aggregates, different type of quarries, different type of materials that need to be pumped. And this makes it more difficult to pump, as you can see in the next point. And then we also have, I was outside South Africa 2 weeks ago, commissioning a concrete pump. And here was a good point, the next one, poor quality and consistency in concrete. And this is a big problem, because especially outside South Africa, where concrete is often put together fairly quickly, and a concrete pump is expected to perform. Yes and no. It can do a lot. Concrete pump has a lot of latitude nowadays. They really do. They've come a long way. But there's certain limitations of concrete and pumping, and we need to respect that. Okay, poor supply, obviously. Traffic, batching plant limitations, special mix designs, problematic, as we're talking about. And that's where we need to partner with the ready-mix suppliers to agree on the quality and pumpability. Bearing in mind that changes all the time. It can change daily. And very, very frustrating. That's what's happening at the moment. I see it a lot where concrete changes from truck mixer to truck mixer, and it can be very, very difficult to control that. But that's why we're here. We're here to train the operators of the pump. We're here to train the operators of the ready-mix companies and construction companies how to handle that, all these ups and downs here. Moving on. Right, so here's some technical tips for those of you in the room that have got your own concrete pumps or which might be interested in concrete pumping. And once again, use the correct pump for the job. Make sure that you utilize the boom efficiently and safely. Common problem, people not using the boom properly and unsafely. I see it all the time, and that's one of the areas we have to work in future. Safety setups are critical, well, that goes without saying. Few of you, maybe those of you in the room know that a concrete pump is a heavy piece of equipment. It can weigh between 20 tons, let's say, and 33 tons, or even 35, 40 tons or more. And once again, also efficient pumping output, use the pump efficiently. Too many people use the pump inefficiently. They pump flat out when, I mean, what's the point? If the concrete pump does 150 cubic meters an hour, the batching plant only does 30 or 60 cubic meters an hour, there's no point in running flat out of the pump, which is going to have high costs in wear and tear. Wearing parts, you're going to know how to use them properly, how to adjust them. Daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, annual maintenance. Always a problem. We spoke about that before. Preventative maintenance, very, very important. And once again, there's maintenance sheets available, schedules available, which I could assist with operators. Housekeeping routines, obvious, you know. Operator engagement and care relationship, very, very important, very important. And professional support from industry experts like ourselves. That is where we are on that one. Okay, so we've almost at the end here, where we have questions which I will answer at the end of the presentation. And once the presentation is over, then I can see the questions coming up here on the questions. So let's have a look while we're here. And I'm just going to go across to this screen here. And the very first one states, there we go. So I have Chinandam, and he asks, who are your competitors in South Africa? How do you see your system integrating 3D printing, which I believe is an inevitable route in the near future? Okay, so Chinandam, we have 2 or 3 European competitors and 2 or 3 Asian competitors who manufacture equipment, and we're all part of the same groups, funny enough. We're all interconnected, even though we compete. On the one side, we compete, and on the other side, we're part of big groups. So what's going to happen is there's definitely a future for 3D printing. We know that, and we know that this is a project on the go, and we know that with time, there's going to be equipment that's going to be 3D printed. There's no doubt about that. Even concrete pumping is going to become a 3D printed operation. I've already seen videos, I've already heard about technologies being developed in certain parts, like in the USA, certain parts in Europe, which are already being developed. It's going to be very interesting to see, and we'll see that as we go along. The next question also from Chinandam, and he asks, what are the chances of concrete as a material in increasing compliance to sustainability? Do you believe that concrete is a sustainable material? Well, that's interesting, because there's also been new developments to do with new materials to replace concrete. It's also at an early stage, in some places at a development stage. I'm not going to mention what it is, because it's a bit of a specific discussion, but that definitely is going to be something different. And then there's a question here about pulling pumping functionality, whereby the machine could be placed halfway up to draw from the source at the bottom and convey concrete twice its height. That's already been done. These big buildings you see, as the Burj in Dubai, what they do is they run 2 concrete pumping stations. They pump concrete from the bottom up to a second station, and sometimes even a third station, because it's so high. So you have 2 or 3 concrete stations where one pump pumps to the next one, and then from that station to the next one, and then to the top. You cannot draw it from the source. You have to pump it from the bottom. So you pump from the bottom up to the next station, and then from there to the next one, and off you go. So concrete's been pumped up to a kilometer high now, which is very interesting, you know. And there's even more future. The higher as we go higher, they're going to have to pump higher and higher. Very special pumps, very expensive, very powerful machines. Machines with 500 kilowatts, for example, on board of electric power to drive the concrete. You need a lot of power. Very high pressures, 200, 250 bar line pressures to get concrete up at those kind of heights. And there is very special equipment for that. And there's another question here from the same gentleman, Chinandam. What is making concrete more abrasive? Well, what's happening is the materials are changing. You know, the environment is changing, so we can't get all the beautiful materials that we used to, and also the demand is changing, the cost. So, for example, we used to crush very nice concrete. We could crush down to 13 and 19 millimeter, make nice blends of concrete, and the concrete pump loves that. But costs, you know, everybody wants cheaper concrete, so now they're crushing down to 22. They want us to pump 22 millimeter stone. And in South Africa, we add a lot of crusher dust to the mix, because the crusher dust is part of the sand. Very, very abrasive. The concrete pumps don't like it because it chews everything out, and also you need to add a lot of filler sand, because crusher sand does not retain water, and it causes problems with the cohesiveness of the concrete. So additives are required, and more filler sand is required to make a nice pumpable mix. A lot of clients don't do that. They try and pump just crusher dust and river sand sometimes with no filler sand, and it's causing all sorts of problems with blockages. So this is a constant challenge, and we have to see how the industry is going to react to this in the future. The next question is, do you give warranties for the concrete supply, and for how long? Okay, so we give warranties for the equipment, and we supply the equipment. Remember, PMSA and Chifa supply concrete equipment, concrete pumps, batching plants, truck mixers, and we supply warranties for the equipment. The equipment has a warranty usually of 1 year, and that is a factory warranty. If you're asking about concrete itself, that's a different question. We need to speak to the concrete manufacturers. I'm sure they will have certain guarantees with their product. Remember that they supply the concrete, we supply the equipment. We handle the concrete. In other words, we can batch it, and we can transport it with a truck mixer, and we can pump it, which is the last part of the chain. So PMSA offers 3 solutions, from the batching plants to the truck mixer to the concrete pump. I specialize in the concrete pump side, and that is what this discussion has been about. That is the end of the discussion, ladies and gentlemen. I do not see any more questions, and I thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to everybody, and you're welcome to.
Hi, thank you so much, Carlo.
Thank
and
you.
I'd like to thank you. I'm sorry, we're just having sound issues at the moment. Hold on a second for me. Sorry, there's nothing like a little bit of digital technical hitches. But that was a great presentation. Thank you so much, Carlo, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us. We'd like to say we hope you had a great day, and just a reminder to join us again tomorrow at 10 o'clock for more CPD accreditation workshops. Thanks, Carlo. Goodbye.
Thank you. Cheerio. Bye, everybody. Thank you.